106.5 FM and online. It's the After 5 Guest with Win Thomas.
And time now for my After 5 guest. And a very special enchanted reading of the script takes place at 7:30 on February 24th at the Cosa Hope Street in Liverpool. And playing the part of Brian Epstein in the end, the final days of the Beatles, is Tony O'Keefe, my After 5 guest. Tony, thanks for joining me this afternoon.
Thank you for having me, Win.
Brian Epstein, Tony, where does he come into this story?
Well, basically, it's all set at the end of the Beatles' career, where they're all sitting around a table in Apple, all discussing the past and what's happening at that present moment. Now, obviously, at this time, Brian has sadly passed away a few years before, but there's a point in the play where they, obviously because of the way business dealings are going in Apple, and Alan Klein sort of has a shadow over them at the time, they start thinking back to what would Brian have done. And that's when the play sort of, the actors freeze and Brian comes on and gives a little sort of talk about how he's always, believed in the boys from the early days of the Cavern onwards, and now, what they've done since, and how he's still sort of overlooking, their career sort of thing. It's a sort of little sort of theatrical device, really,
So you're a bit of a ghost then, are you, Tony?
Sort of, yeah. Although no one can see him, it's just sort of a theatrical device,
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, indeed, yeah. So what's it like playing the Beatles then? What's that sort of feeling? Do these guys, two are still left alive, obviously two are not with us anymore?
Yeah, well, as I say, it is based when they were still all here, and it's fascinating because it's based on words the actual Beatles spoke. It's all it's on record of what they actually said around the time. So it's a fascinating little look into, like a fly on the wall thing of, being there at the end when they were all they were talking about the past and, what had happened, but also the little niggles and the little arguments all come to a head as well. So you see that as well. And it's fascinating, really, to think, well, all these words, these actors who were doing a great job, saying, it was actually spoken by the Beatles themselves. So it is really not just a fantasy. It's a true to life sort of expose, if you like, of what happens at the end.
It can be a bit eerie, can it, Tony? With obviously two of them are no longer with us, so it can be a bit eerie, can it? Really, to think their words.
Brian comes back at the end, and as the guys are leaving the stage, and gives a little overview of what they've done since obviously John and George are gone, what Paul and Ringo have done since, and sort of as they leave the stage to give a little sort of finish to the whole thing. But no, it's if you're a Beatle fan, it's one of those things that will be absolutely fascinating to watch. It's almost like being there. The guys in the group who are playing the group do a great job of the characterizations, as they were at the time.
Yeah, I was a Beatles fan from I can't remember how far back I was, probably before I was in sort of senior school, I suppose. That's when I really took notice of these guys. So you say this bitterness, does it show that it was always this kind of thing between McCartney and Lennon, and also George wasn't happy with bits and pieces as well?
That's exactly it. I mean, John, obviously at the time, he was with Yoko pretty much 24/7.
Is she in it?
Caused a little bit of... She is in it, yeah. All the wives are in it, albeit small cameos. But yeah, there is a bit of friction between George and John with Yoko being so close and in the studio and trying to work and things like that. And obviously Paul, it gets a little bit of stick in the show as being, sort of quite selfish and bossy and stuff, all the usual things. But these are actually sort of said by the Beatles, so it's sort of what they actually thought at the time. So yeah, I mean, it is very much what happened, and Alan Klein is looking at, through John's eyes, as the man to take over. Whereas Paul's eyes, it's Linda's dad, Mr. Eastman, who sort of he wants to look after the Beatles' career, you know. So there's a lot of friction there as well.
So all that stuff is mentioned in, is it? Yeah. Sorry, that's all mentioned in, is it?
It is, yeah. That the whole thing, it goes from sort of reminiscing and, you know, didn't we have a laugh in Hamburg to what do you think you're doing, you know. There's a lot of drama in it, as well as, you know, sort of, it's not just looking back and saying how great they were. It's also, there's a good dose of reality in there as well. So it's quite unique in that case, you know. It's not sugarcoating anything.
Right. So then you see you've got Yoko Ono, you've got Linda, you've got Maureen, which I think was still married to Ringo then, was it?
Yeah, that's right. And then Kathy you've got Boyd as well. And
Kathy, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Kathy, he was still with her, was he? She went on to live with Clapton, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So you got quite a big connection with the Beatles, haven't you? You've played George as well as playing Brian Epstein,
right.
haven't you?
We actually did the last live performance was in George Harrison's old house, which is in Speak, which is now a sort of it's an Airbnb
with Ken Lambert, is it? About that, yeah.
Yeah, and we did it in the front room, and I was playing George at the time in the last performance, so it was quite scary and weird to be sat in the very room with his pictures of him all around, sat on the couch, and you'd sort of playing him and doing the script to a handful of people who could get in and see it, you know. The difference this time, obviously, it's in a smaller theatre. It's in a small theatre rather than a living room. And it's a sold-out audience already, and there's quite a few people from the Beatles sort of circle that are coming down, or Beatles, you know, the industry locally are going to be there as well. So as well as the Beatles fans. So it's going to be a good night, I think.
Yeah, it is. Yes, sounds absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I'd be glad to. I'd love to see that on the stage.
It is going on to do other shows and other performances. Hopefully, a full live theatre experience later in the year.
Yeah, because you know, obviously Karen Stewart White is obviously one of the producers behind all this, and she's a Swansea girl, so maybe she'll bring it to Swansea one day. Yeah, it'd be absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, well, hopefully, she's doing quite a lot at the moment, various different plays in London and what have you. So, it's going to be good, I think. And you know, as I say, the guy who wrote the original book, Keith Badman, he's been on the Beatles scene for years, and he put the book together, which the play is based on.
Well, you kind of share things, because obviously Ken Lambert and Keith Bartman have both been After Five guests, the same as you, so you kind of join. You join a unique club there, yeah, indeed, yeah.
Yeah, well, he seemed to enjoy it when we did it at the house, you know.
Can you name the other actors for me who actually played?
Yes, I'll give you the cast. It's playing John Lennon is Julian Sudbury. Paul McCartney is played by Luke Seddon.
Yeah.
George Harrison is played by Jordan Barclay. Ringo's played by Lou Freeburn. And the director is Ellie Thornhill.
Right. Okay, great. Yeah. So who wrote the play, you said?
A guy called P.T. Rose.
Oh, yes, I know.
Based on the book by Keith Badman. Yeah,
I know P.T. Yeah.
So we've had a few drafts as we've had different. We've had various actors coming in and out, and we've had a few drafts where different. Like I said, I played George, and a few other people have played Brian, and one thing and another. So, we've also got a guy who played Brian last time, Christopher Power. He's doing the narration, setting it all up at the beginning and all that, you know. So, it's nice to have him back as well.
But there's no music in this, is it? It's just a straightforward play, isn't it?
No. It's just the dialogue that you know, and it is a rehearsed reading. So we're reading from scripts. It's not like fully learned, but it is sort of blocked and everything. You know, it is a performance as such.
But you've been a seasoned actor, I suppose you'd like to see it on the stage without any kind of scripts.
It would be great to see it like that, yeah. But these little sort of performances are all helping towards that, all sort of tightening up the script and seeing what works, what doesn't work, you know. It's sort of it's something that usually gets done in secret, and you know, writers do different drafts before they come to the stage. But it's a good way of doing it and testing the audience and testing the waters to see, you know, as I say, what works and what doesn't live, type of thing.
So you said they talk about their days in Hamburg and all that way back. They go back as far as that.
They do, yes, yeah. There's a lot of talk about, you know, as they're sitting there at the end, as it were. You know, they are looking back to their career, how they met, how they, you know, all had fun in Hamburg, how they had the first hits and everything. And then obviously, as it goes on, the little sort of business arrangements, the way, you know, things pans out or didn't pan out in some cases, you know.
Yeah, because
and you can see the journey. You get the journey of the whole sort of from 62 onwards, really.
Yeah, because that bit in us obviously it was things like the fate of the Apple shop and all that sort of stuff, wasn't it, as well?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it is all mentioned in there, so it is good in that respect, but as I say, you do get what's happening at the time they're in this room, the other sort of forces that are coming into play and how that affects them as well. So you can see how they're really close when they started, and the little things that have come in to sort of pull them apart a little bit. But obviously that was just the way things were at the time. They did an awful lot in 8 years.
Yeah, they did. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, they ruled the world just about, and they conquered the world.
Yeah. I mean, like no one else has,
Nobody else. Probably no one else ever do it again, probably. But does this meeting in the boardroom, does that take place after the rooftop performance or before it? Can you remember?
I think it might have been after, but I'm not quite sure of the timeline in that respect. But it's around that time, because there is a photo of them actually sitting around this big oak table, Yeah. And so that we have that in our minds when we're doing it. That's the setting for it.
Alan Klein, you mentioned as well.
Yes.
He isn't actually in the play, is he? Or is it just John mentioned him? Does he?
He is. He's on a phone line. He leaves an answer phone message.
Right.
Which gives them obviously something to bounce off as well, So that's a talking point in the play as well.
So finally, and where does the play go from here, and where do you go from here now then?
Well, I'm actually in one of the resident bands at the Cavern Club.
Oh, right, are you?
A band called the Shakers. We play all Merseybeat stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm an actor as well, so I've done plenty of acting work as well.
Oh, things sound like Misery and things like that you sing, is it?
All the Please Please Me era stuff, all the rock and roll, all the stuff that was played in the Cavern by all the groups at the time. We do, we're there every week. But yeah, so I mean the play, hopefully, as Karen has said, will, these sort of little draft versions will solidify into a final version, which will have a proper run.
Marvellous, absolutely
somewhere, later in the year, hopefully.
Well, I've been many times to the Cavern. I'll have to spot you next time I'm there, Tony. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're there every Sunday. So
every Sunday, right? I'll remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being my After 5 guest. It's absolutely brilliant to talk to you, and say good luck on the February the 24th at the Cosa Hope Street in Liverpool. Yep, 7:30. Thanks so much, Tony. Thanks so much for being my guest today.
All right. Thanks, Win.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.